All right. We'll go ahead and get started in a couple of seconds after people come in with their cups of coffee. We have an important speaker up next. All right. Y'all ready? Are you getting ready? I don't know how many people we have outside still getting coffee. There's no cookies, so don't look for cookies. So, got to make sure I don't mess up any notes that are here. Y'all ready to get started? Oh, there's that nasty feedback. Stand back here. All right, let's go ahead and get started. It's now my pleasure to introduce the second of my three bosses, but that's not really why it's my pleasure to introduce him. Commissioner Demerson represents employers. The unique position that the commissioner is that he was a division director prior, and you all know this, prior to being a commissioner. So he truly understands some of the challenges that we have implementing some of our programs and doing a whole lot of the stuff that we do. It really does add a different perspective to his presence on the commission. So that aside, let me go ahead and introduce Commissioner Aaron Demerson. Commissioner, if you're ready to come on up.
Good afternoon, good afternoon. I was asking Bonnie, should I hop up or should I go around? I decided to hop up. So glad I didn't fall. So, yeah, thank you for the introduction, and let's give a round of applause to Ed Serna, our Executive Director for the agency. I've known Ed for quite some time and just enjoyed the job that he's doing as well. So it's great to be with each and every one of you today. I'm glad that we are in person, not on a Zoom call where we're going, Courtney, you're on mute, you're on mute. Ed, we can't see you, and the like. And so it's just a delight to be out here before each and every one of you this afternoon. A lot to do. You know, we had an exciting keynote speaker, Dr. Brown. I think he's left out of the room, but if you guys enjoyed Dr. Brown, just let me hear it by a round of applause. That's kind of hats off to our conference planning committee and the team, the work that they're doing day in and day out to make a difference in pulling these things off. I was at a foster care conference about 2 or 3 weeks ago, once again, hitting it on all levels. You guys are just kind of taking care of business, and to kick off with Dr. Brown and the job that he did was quite phenomenal, and I have an opportunity to introduce our next speaker as well, and so it's just going to continue and continue and continue. So, you know, business is booming here in the great state of Texas. We are doing some phenomenal things in this state. When you go to our rural communities, the urban communities, anywhere we're out there doing that, we're seeing that things are happening in good ways. Michael Brown talked about the legislative session, and I called him Michael Brown, Michael Britton, talked about the legislative session and what's happening there in the positive direction that it's taken. And you just kind of see the fire in the spirit that we have here in this great state of Texas. I mean, it's in this room, it's out when we go to those communities, and I, like the other commissioners, we have an opportunity to visit a lot of the communities. I saw Jose when I was coming in from Waco, visiting with some of the best barbecue ever in Waco. When we go to these communities, you guys take us to some of the best spots as well. And I always say when we go to the valley, we come back with about 5 pounds heavier and the like. And so we're just delighted to go out. But we see what's happening in these Texas communities. I mean, the work that's being done is pretty phenomenal. And that work doesn't get done without this team that's out here right now. I often refer to you guys as being where the rubber meets the road. The rubber meets the road at the local level. The boots on the ground. That's how I refer to you guys. You know, Texas can have the best business climate in the nation, and we do. But the rubber meets the road at the local level. If we're not taking care of business at the local level, then things are not getting done. And so let me ask you guys to give yourselves a round of applause for all the work that you've been doing and continue to do. You know, when we go out, my chest is pumped up, that Texas-sized pride that we have in our state, but it's because of the work that you guys do day in and day in to make a difference. And so let me do this as I get ready to kind of wrap up. I want to talk a little bit about Texas. Let's go ahead and talk Texas, and I'm going to use this PowerPoint to see if this works. And so how many of you guys feel like that? That's how we are in Texas, but we feel that way for a certain reason, and so I'm going to ask you guys to do something for me. There are facts behind these numbers, and so I'm going to do something. How many of you guys know what's called a call and response? Call and response. All right. We were actually doing this. You probably don't know that term or whatever, but you're going to answer back to me. I'm going to mention something, and you're going to talk back. It won't be along the lines of preach, like I've heard in that sense, but you'll tell me yes, that these things are good. And so the fact of the matter, these are Texas facts. Governor's Cup for the 11th year in a row. You're supposed to come out with yes. You're excited about that. That's a good thing. You know, so that's given to the state actually that has the number of the highest number of recruitment projects in the state, and Texas has that. You know, we're in a position 11 years in a row, and we're not taking that for granted. Those are things that are being done. But again, going back to you guys, the boots on the ground that allows us to do that. A company will look at the state of Texas, then they're going to decide where they want to locate. If we don't have our act together at the local level, they're going to locate in another state or another place. And so 11 years in a row, we have the Governor's Cup. Next, best state for business, 19 years in a row. All right, we're getting there. You know, for 19 years in a row, when you ask corporate CEOs what's the best place to do business, these CEOs reflect, they say Texas. And again, we don't take that for granted. That's something that's happening in the state over and over. The governor's office is economic development and tourism team. But when you have a company looking at our great state of Texas, what do they want? They want a workforce. They need a workforce. And you guys are the boots on the ground to make that happen in a lot of different ways. The training programs that you guys have, anything that you're doing as it relates to the workforce, either new employees and or retained employees, it ties into the work that you guys are doing day in and day out to make a difference. Number one state for exporting. Number one for a lot of years, so many years, we've been number one. You can give it a round of applause as well. Largest trading partners being Mexico, followed by Canada and the others. But Texas, again, number one exporting state for a number of years. The other one, Texas is younger and faster growing than the nation. You can give that a round of applause as well. And lastly, and most importantly, here in Texas, we are the envy of many in the world of workforce. And you guys, you can give that a good round of applause. That's you guys. There are a lot of states out there. I hear this quite often when our team goes to the national conferences and the like, and you talk about what other states are doing. Texas is always at the forefront. I'm thinking about Adam Leonard. He just comes to mind right now. And Adam, you know, when he's doing work, the data guru from that standpoint, and he talks about what we're doing in Texas and then how they solicit the work that we're doing. And they look at what we're doing, and that's over and over. You continue to see that, and we appreciate all that's been doing that's taking place. Now, some people might look at this and say, oh, well, there goes those Texans bragging once again. You know, that's what they're doing. They're bragging about all the things that they're doing. Dr. Brown is from Bowling Green, and he probably would say that. Our next speaker is from the Bay City area and everything. She may say that again. Those Texans are talking. But in Texas, we always say, it ain't bragging if it's true. Yeah. The fact of the matter is that we're taking care of business, you guys are taking care of business, and you're doing that in a big way, major way. And so as I begin to wrap up, I wanted to let you guys know, we have a dynamic team here. I saw Lake Todd that's here, Kimberly Bradford Brown, our Deputy Chief of Staff, Bonnie Downs, our Communications Director. I know Brian, our Chief of Staff, is in the back as well. And then we have other team members that are at the office, 4 employment law attorneys, Jacu, Elsa Ramos, Mario Hernandez, and Tommy Simmons are at the office, and then Willette Wallace, who runs the whole office. Mentioning those names because if you guys need to get in touch with anybody from our office, we want you guys to touch base with us. Cassandra Madrano as well. And so one thing that I want you guys to help us with, though, something that I need your assistance with and would love to have your assistance with, these are some areas that we're going to continue to concentrate on. These are areas that are in our office, and I want you guys to take a look at those things, and if any of those touch your level or touch your area, know that our office is open and ready to help in that regard. And so our Texas Conference for Employers that we've had, those are put on throughout the state. in a number of different areas, rural and urban, where we want to bring individuals out learning about employment law. If you see anything that we're doing in that space, if you see any other suggestions, we take input as well. And so continue to work with us with that particular program. Our Texas Interns Unite program, that's bringing together all the interns in the state with employers. We do that through our Texas Internship Challenge portal as well, and we're working with the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board to do that program. We're coming up on the summer right now, and real quick, there's a program, Texas Works. You want to pay an intern $20 an hour, this program will reimburse $10 of that. And so if you're working with employers in your respective community and they're doing internship programs or thinking about internship programs, mention that Texas Works program. That's one that basically, again, $20 internship, the company only pays $10. That's a game changer in some of the rural communities, the urban communities. That's a game changer everywhere. And so take advantage of that program as well. Small business, this is Small Business Month. Be intentional, the speaker talked about it, not Small Business Month, but Small Business Week, Bonnie would remind me. Go out and make a difference to those small businesses that are in our state, in our community. They're really putting individuals to work on a daily basis as well. And then transitioning foster youth. Our speaker had 9 kids, and a number of them were foster youth. But transitioning foster youth, we want to work in that space in big ways to show that there are employers out there that want to hire individuals, and this is another potential talent pool as well. Wrapping up, lastly, the last 2 you see on there, We Hire Vets, where we actually recognize employers that have veterans on their team. And so I have a chance to do that. Commissioner Chair Daniel has an opportunity to do that, and so does Commissioner Treviño as well. We'll go out, employers that are recognizing employees. And I often share with Commissioner Treviño that even if there's an employer doing that, the employer has to have the employees, and those veterans are those employees. And so through this program, we want to recognize them. And I want to take this opportunity. Are there any veterans in the room today? Any veterans? Just raise your hand or just kind of stand. Let's give them a round of applause. I'm proud to say Bonnie Downs and Tommy Simmons in my office are veterans, and so we appreciate the work that they do. It allows us to be in these positions that we're in right now. And then lastly, We Hireability program. I think I saw Cheryl. I know Melinda is in the room as well. But the folks from the vocational rehab teams, I love it when I go out to those communities when we're recognizing employers, once again, that are recognizing individuals that they're hiring 10% of their population that are disabled. We're playing in that space, and we want to raise our level of participation in all of those areas. And so the 5 areas there, 5 shots that you see there, but number of programs that are there. If there's anything we can do in your respective communities, we want to make sure that we're in a position to do that. And just like the speaker talked about, being in a position to take input, we're looking for any input that you might have that makes us that much better as we go out throughout the state. And so wanted to come by basically to do 2 things. I'm going to have an opportunity to introduce our next speaker, but mainly to say thank you to the individuals in this room. Again, the boots on the ground, where the rubber meets the road, where you're taking care of business, and we don't take that for granted. We appreciate each and every one of you, and we appreciate all that you guys are doing. And so let's continue to be intentional about making a difference in the lives of others, just as you guys are doing, and we appreciate you guys being here in Austin today. So again, another round of applause for yourself before I introduce the next speaker. So when Ed was introducing the next speaker, they came and moved the mic. They're not going to move it for me this time. I get to do it all from here. I told him he was doing a phenomenal job doing that. But the awesome task to introduce our next speaker, and it's an opportunity for me to do this. We are blessed again in this great state of Texas. We had Dr. Brown, who we spoke to, and we'll be able to do some things with that. And even before she comes up, I had an opportunity to visit, and she has a number of different ideas that will take us to other levels. And so we're going to network and make those connections even more so as we move along. The name, you guys see it in the book, and so I'm going to get through this introduction, and then you can tell me how I did from that standpoint. But our super session speaker, Ton-Quinlivan, is presenting Workforce Solutions for Unsettled Times. Ton-Quinlivan is a nationally recognized thought leader in workforce development and a catalyst for inclusive economic mobility through higher education. Her work and distinguished career continues to impact the public, private, and nonprofit sectors. Currently, Ms. Ton-Quinlivan is the CEO of Futuro Health, a nonprofit whose mission is to improve the health and wealth of communities by growing the largest network of allied healthcare workers in the nation. She's also a podcast host and author of the best-selling book, Workforce RX, Agile and Inclusive Strategies for Employers, Educators, and Workers in Unsettled Times. Please welcome to the stage Ms. Von Ton-Quinlivan.
Thanks, Commissioner. Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Commissioner Demerson, and thank you to the staff of the Commission for inviting me here. Those Texas touts were quite impressive, so a round of applause to everybody in the room here. And you may not know, I actually am coming back to Texas. I actually lived here in Dallas when I was in middle school, and then lived here after college. And on last Friday, my son, who is a senior in college, was choosing between a California-based university and a Houston-based university, and he just told us he picked the Houston-based university. Yes. So I'll be coming to visit you a lot, so that's a good excuse. So as Commissioner Demerson explained, I'm Von Ton-Quinlivan. I'm CEO of Futuro Health. My workforce development chops actually came from the private sector, and then the public sector, and then now the nonprofit sector. So when I was in the private sector, it was with a 20,000 person employee organization, and I was able to take it from having no opinion in workforce development to becoming a nationally recognized best practice, and it was in the energy and utility sector. From there, I was appointed by the governor to be Executive Vice Chancellor, driving the workforce mission of the largest system of higher education in the country, which is the California Community Colleges. We have 116 institutions with over 2 million students. And then my latest is that I was asked to bring a lot of these skill sets to really help tackle the healthcare shortages, which I believe all of us share in common. So look forward to sharing a little bit about that as well. But what's probably more important than all of that is the same question that you ask every day, is like, why do you do the work, right? Why do you do the work? So I'm so appreciative that I have this opportunity to do the work. You know, in 1975, my family escaped from the Vietnam War, which was not so different from the Ukraine war in terms of disrupting families. And we were able to come to the United States. And so I'm a product of English as a second language, lunch tokens, community support services, and I have always been very, very grateful that the education system has been and remains open to people like me. And the work that you do on the ground is so important in changing lives. And I feel like I've been a beneficiary of many others who have provided that opportunity to me. And so in my last job as Executive Vice Chancellor, in my current job as CEO of Futuro Health, I feel like my work is to pay it forward, to pay forward that opportunity that my family had when we came to the United States. So in a big way, just thank you for the work that you do to change lives. So I'm gonna, you know, I went to, you know, these are really unsettled times, and it's not only for us workers, but for our communities. And you know, Commissioner Daniels gave out the statistics that there's over 800,000 open jobs here in Texas, with only 575,000 unemployed, right? So even if all of them came into the job market, we still wouldn't be solving the open jobs problem. And so, you know, I was at a national gathering of healthcare workforce folks, and they said, well, is it a problem of marketing? We in healthcare need to market better our jobs. And the answer is no. There's something bigger going on. There's a bigger structural issue going on. Because if you take the look at the Texas statistics, they're magnified at the national level. So you have articles like here with the Washington Post, and now it's actually 9.7. So it's still roughly 10 million open jobs at the national level. But the volume of unemployed people have decreased, so 5.6 million. So it's the same issue in Texas, magnified at the national level. And then you have articles like the second from the Society of Human Resources that these shortages are going to persist. And those of you, if you are in healthcare or have healthcare jobs in your backyard, 85% of facilities are facing healthcare workforce shortages. So it's not just an issue of better marketing one industry over another. We have a big structural issue going on. So today I'm hoping to share some of the best practices and concepts that were highlighted in my book, Workforce RX, and then show some examples of how they can combine differently so that we can get some out-of-the-box solutions for this time when it's super unsettling for all of us and our organizations. So let me start with the fundamentals and then build up from there. So all of you, when I talk to employers, I give them the caveat, look, if you're successful posting your jobs, then don't do workforce development because it requires intentionality, right? But you all know that. It requires intentionality. So if you can post that job and get what you want, then keep on doing that. But if you're doing the post and praying, which I think all of us in the field have heard of, right? Post and praying, then it's time to put some effort into workforce development so that you can get a reliable, a quality, and diverse pipeline. So where does that begin? It always begins with the three-legged stool of workforce development. And so you see the employers, you see the education providers, and then you see the workforce board, usually in leadership, and in areas where there's not a strong workforce board or not a presence of a workforce board, some of the community-based organization kicks in. And the concept here is that we don't have to do everything. Each party doesn't have to do everything. Instead, we just need to do what we all do best. So what do employers need to do? Well, the employers, they should be taking the lead because after all, it's their jobs. Establishing the hiring requirements and then hire or create internships. And then this last point, which is really the hardest point for employers to hear, is that they need to work together. Like form a consortium to aggregate jobs. Because they don't have to do this alone. But what are we trying to fix here? We have a problem where a lot of employers ask, well, why can't education give me what I need? I mean, it's just a fundamental question. And I didn't fully appreciate until I went from the employer side, the private sector side, to move into a higher ed side, that I understood the problem of the fire hose versus the garden hose. The fire hose versus the garden hose. So think of all of you. How many of you are in hiring positions? How many of you hire? Okay. So when we have jobs, what do? We rip out jobs, right? 1 job, 2 job, 3 job. Well, we'd be lucky to drip out like 5 of the same job at the same time. So that's like a garden hose. But think about higher education. What does it do? Well, if any of you have been in the classroom, you realize you have to fill your classroom with at least like 25 students. The moment it's getting down to 15 students, 10 students, you're at risk of being canceled. There's an economy of scale to education too. So that is what I call the fire hose, right? So it needs to bring in enrollment at a high volume or some sufficient volume. And then, of course, all those students move through and they gush out, usually like in May, right? Now, that is a complete mismatch between how the jobs are being dripped out and then how education works, right? So what we're trying to correct when we're asking employers to form the consortia is to really just rework this economy of scale. And that's what I discovered when I was leading workforce development in the industry sector. Education was not interested in my problems until I could get some volume up. And if I could get some volume up, and especially multi-year worth of volume, then education was willing to upgrade their curriculum. They were willing to send their faculty for skills upgrades so that they can teach what is current. They were willing to invest capital to get the latest equipment. So what did I do? I had to go look at across all the different divisions within my company, and sometimes a big company has multiple subsidiaries. You have to look across them. Maybe they're they're hiring similar occupations, like mostly the same, and then start to aggregate them so that we could time when, instead of having some drip out in March, some drip out in April, we could gather them so they all came out, those postings came out at the same time that our graduates come out. Suppliers. We were, like in the middle of the night, if you have a big firestorm and the power line goes down, so the people deployed to your houses, they're called line workers, right? So they are used to climbing up really, tall poles and hanging off of helicopters, so you can't have a fear of heights. Well, there was our supplier who were the tree trimmers. They had to go trim all your trees to get it outside of the power lines. Anyway, they were not afraid of heights, so they were doing kind of the similar thing, but not exactly the same. And so we went to our suppliers to say, do you have occupations that are similar? There were adjacent industry, like construction industry, which hired the same jobs. And then the hardest was to learn to contact competitors and see if they would play together in order to aggregate jobs. Well, the energy industry at one point was facing 25 to 50% of its workforce looking ahead at retirement. So that was the energy, the gas, and the electric, nuclear industries, all looking at a possibility of 25 to 50% of the workforce retiring. And so our industry mobilized and said, hey, Vaughn, for your company, do you think you can contact all your peer companies and figure out, and form a consortia, and then figure out what is, at least one occupation that you all need together. And so I had my CEO talk to the other CEO, come and assign somebody. So we formed a consortia, we picked one occupation, and then it made it much easier for the community colleges, for example, to build that curriculum for all of us because we were organized to play point. So super important when the employers can get together in order to make it easier for, we're trying to pool the jobs. The second is education. I know that Texas has a huge set of institutions, from 2-year colleges, 4-year colleges, you have online platform, employer training, apprenticeships, and so many other things. We'll talk a little bit more later about how these things are unbundling and being rebundled at this moment in time. But one of the things I so appreciated was that the education, the job of the education is to close the gap between where the population is, right, who the clients are, and the skill sets that were needed. So when we were doing a pre-employment program, a pre-apprenticeship program in the energy sector, we realized that a whole bunch of folks were failing because they were not passing spatial reasoning. Spatial reasoning. And so you know what our education provider did? They actually got a workbook in spatial reasoning. It was like an 8th grade workbook. And it's to move all the cubes around, like your Rubik's Cubes, like in different configuration, and had that inserted into the curriculum. In addition, the candidates were a little bit out of shape. So they actually created a physical conditioning curriculum to add in. Remember, these are jobs where you're climbing up poles and other things, so you have to be physically fit. And so they had physical conditioning every day, and then they would compete in soccer every week. And so that was, so in addition to the academic curriculum, they had that. And so in that 3-month program, which was structured, it was specific to close the gap between where the clients are and where the employers needed them to be. So that's super important. And then this is, of course, I think a super essential part, the role that you play on the boots on the ground. This role is so, so important. I was a big advocate of the workforce system when the White House, a prior White House, was asking about the value of the workforce system. And I think the role in outreach, screening, case management is so critical, especially for our diverse communities, our non-traditional communities to be able to enter the workforce. And I love to tell the story of my fish story, actually. which exemplifies how beautiful the collaboration with the workforce board could be. So in the workforce program, we had it all structured, the three-legged stool. We had the education provider work with the individuals to move them through the curriculum. So as an employer, we met a young gentleman named Aleki. And we said, Aleki, can't wait to hire him after he goes through the pre-employment process. So we're waiting there. He goes through all the tests. On the back end, he disappears from the list, the hiring list. And because we were doing this intentional workforce development program, we asked, well, what happened to Aleki? So it turns out when Aleki was 15, he went fishing. And he caught a fish that was too small. And because he caught a fish that was so small, he received a ticket. He didn't pay the ticket as a 15-year-old, and then that ticket went into court. Well, as a 15-year-old, he didn't show up in court. So Aleki had a felony on his record. At 19, he had a felony. He could have applied to every single energy sector job in the nation. All he would have gotten given was a thank you, but no thank you email, right? He could have gotten educated with as many certificates and degrees that you at our colleges can provide, but he could not get through that background check. It took our partnership with the workforce board to pull it off. And so the case manager at our workforce board worked with Aleki, expunged the record, and then he was able to be hired. And that is why it's a three-legged stool, a three-legged partnership, because we all bring what we do best. And this combination continues to work, whether you're in the energy sector, healthcare sector, manufacturing sector, any of the sectors, it works. So I'm going to introduce to you some concepts. One is ecosystem of the willing. So during the time of a lot of uncertainty, it's helpful to have an ecosystem. You know, we were, in the healthcare arena, we were tasked, like, would you want to build a new healthcare training institution? And we said, no, 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 because things are changing so quickly, the skill sets are changing so quickly. It's actually better for us to build an ecosystem where we have different education providers coming together. Because if you remember, during the pandemic, we went from having almost none of us participate in telehealth and telemedicine to over 80-something%. And it's not reverting, right? It's staying constant. So the skill sets for all of those individuals that providing your care has shifted a lot. So what we've done is, so building an ecosystem allows you to do more of what is working and to do less of things that are not working. Because there's no one institution, no one organization that can handle all the needs of the employers. In California, in particular, we then encourage all of our organization to work in regions to serve regional economies rather than compete against each other within the region. And interestingly enough, we were asking, you know, monies are really tight right now. Why are you competing against each other and holding your curriculum close to their chest? And they said, well, that's because you, the state, when I was executive vice chancellor, they said, you, the state, are causing us to compete. I said, what are you talking about? They said, well, you issue these RFPs that cause us to want to win because the best gets the award. And so we have to hold all of our curriculum and all the good things that we do close to our chest, right? Because we want to win. And so that's a good point. So we actually changed the flow of the money to incentivize organizations to work together. So we started first with the community colleges to incentivize, hey, all of the colleges in this region, maybe the 19 in the LA area, that's a lot of colleges. Why don't you come together, work together, coordinate, and collaborate? And then as a result, the workforce boards also wanted to work regionally because they too have a limited number. So so you imagine 19 community colleges with 7 workforce boards coming together. And then all of a sudden, organizations like Amazon Web Services, who would never have given any college or WIB, the light of day, they came and they wanted to work with the region, right? Because now they can get some scale. And that was really interesting to notice how it was easier to engage with the employer at a higher level, at a bigger scale, because we were organized in ecosystems rather than competing as institutions. Another concept super interesting is this concept of portability as you look into the future of learning and the future of work. You know, if you think about the way that financial aid is structured, it's all about, hey, try to get all the education you can at the beginning of life, and then, but you know that skills have a very short lifespan, so now you actually have to come back and do skills upgrade constantly, right? So we all know that. You can't just go to school. My son can't just go to school one time and then be done with it. And yet most of our financial aid system is structured so that it's kind of at the early onset versus the throughout our lives to get these upgrades. And so, you know, when I was at the National Governors Association convening, we thought, wow, would it be interesting if there could be a way to support workers in addition to many of the instruments we have out there? Would it be interesting to have something like the 401k that comes with us, but it's more of like a 529C for like continuous learning? And I was amazed to find out there was a country already has this. You know, Singapore has the lifelong learning and training account, and it goes with you wherever you go. So whether employers contribute while you're there or governments contribute in a moment in time, it goes with you. So we have to think about some of these alternative structures for helping workers, because otherwise it's difficult. The loans are very difficult and, you know, are burdensome right now. Employers, we're only with an employer for 5 years or less, according to the Department of Labor. So then it comes back to us as individuals to pay for the training. So we need some other ways to be able to finance continuous skills upgrades. You know, my father-in-law was 35 years with Boeing. And in those 35 years, he benefited from not only you know, healthcare and education, but so many other supports, right? He was able to, there were so much assets that was associated by having that relationship with Boeing. And now with so many of our jobs getting fragmented into gigs and shorter term work, we also have to think about how to help workers hook into those assets. I mean, think about the Hollywood industry where, you know, their work is project-based, essentially. They're gigs, right? So how do those folks get health care and some of their insurance and education? So we have to think about not only what is immediate, but look at how things are changing, and then how do we equip workers with not only education and training, but think about assets that are so important for stabilizing communities. Next is continuous learning. Oh, I love this one. So I had taken a field trip to Seattle, which is the home of a very, very large company whose logo is on your desktop. All right. So they had me meet with the head of their AI operations. And my tour guide was so pleased. He said, oh, please, please, please show Vaughn the dashboard that the AI produces. And the data scientist, he sheepishly looks onto the ground and he says, I'm sorry, Vaughn, but I cannot show you the dashboard because today AI has one of its designated learning days. So the AI has 3 days a week where it has designated learning days. And I thought, wow, that is so funny, because how many designated learning days do we have to focus on our skills, right? But the fun thing is to look at technology, all of these things that you read about in terms of evolution of technology, and look at these innovation leaders as a bellwether for how are the skills going to shift. So there's an airport, again, I'll use Singapore because they just have great stories. They have an Changi Airport Terminal number 4. that is fully automated. There's no one to check you in, there's nobody to take your bags, there's nobody to sweep the floors. It's all automated, right? So when you look at that, and you look at, for example, let's say there's some dirt on the floor, like how does a robot get deployed to clean the dirt? It's all through data systems, people watching those, and then deploying the robots from afar. So then, what are the skill sets that are going to become more valuable over time versus less valuable, right? And it can, now being able to deal with data, synthesize data, deal with robots, for example, becomes more important. So these are all bellwethers for what could be coming. And so it's good to check out like what's coming, whether it's ChatGPT or electric, autonomous vehicles, to see how does it change skill sets so that we can begin seeding the skill set change in curriculum. Okay, and then I just want to talk a little bit about instructional design. And this is one thing that's going to really help us keep up with the shelf life of skills, right? We used to have only one unit. It used to be the degree. It used to be, your associate's degree, bachelor degree, and advanced degrees, right? Now we have all sorts of shortened forms. And so the key is, in order to keep in touch with skill sets, it's to figure out how do we combine and stack credentials so that we can create on-ramps and off-ramps and fine-tune these skills. So, for example, there are competencies, and the competencies add up to courses and modules. And courses and modules could be badged, and then they can be badged into and incorporated into certificates, and then certificate can be embedded into degrees, for example. So that's a form of stacking credential. And at Futuro Health, we began working on that too, because we wanted to increase the participation of diverse communities into healthcare jobs, and began to kind of break apart the pieces. And so I love playing with Legos. My son that's going to Texas is for studies, love playing Legos. And so here's an example, where, for example, to create a sterile processing tech, start with the soft skills, and then you add the technical skills, your career technical education, and then of course all the wraparound that are so important. And then they can go to work, which is the fork to the bottom, or we create the next ladder, which is the surgical tech program. So they can go up if they want, or they can exit. And then, of course, surround them with all the important wraparound services that WIBs are for. And so we also had to create a set of soft skills. It's interesting, we were testing, well, what's the best way to support adults? And what we found was that for adults, building their confidence to get back into education was so important. And the education is also online, which was different from what we all experienced, back when. And then getting our families ready, right? That's super important to an adult. So building an on-ramp where they were developing their soft skills for healthcare, plus building their confidence, turned out to be a really good on-ramp. And so thousands of people are on-ramping in that way, and then they move into a technical program. So here's one where Google IT, that certificate is available. We said, oh, that's very good in building technical skills, but it's not enough for healthcare. So then we asked Johns Hopkins University to create coursework on what is IT like in healthcare, because there's different privacy results. So then now we combine the soft skills, the Google IT, plus the Johns Hopkins program, and then wrapped it around with other services in order to create a health IT specialist. We had great stories, changing lives. This one young gentleman, Damien, decided he had gotten laid off during the pandemic. His wife told him about this program, so he took it, fell in love with the field, and then went on to get a bachelor in cybersecurity with 4 job offers and 2 over 80K. And so, again, what we found out is, according to Strata Consumer Insights, adults are not in the mood to get a degree right now. It's very uncertain, but they're willing to build their skills. So as a teaser, could you bring them in through these certificates, right? Here's a big one. We would love to work on this with Texas. Mental and behavioral health. Everybody's suffering from having a lack of workforce in this area. And really, in mental health, therapists are trained only at the master's level. So what we look to do is, until there's enough master's level, you have to create bachelors of social work, associates of addiction studies, and you can start with certificates like a community health worker with behavioral health, a peer support specialist, which is someone, like if you've gone through addiction yourself, for example, or alcoholism or depression, you can help others do it, or substance use counselor. It would be great to be able to take people, bring them into the workforce. Remember, the teaser is get them into the skills, and then how to accelerate them up the workforce with a recognition that they've done some of the work before so that they don't have to start from scratch. So when we combine that all, what is amazing to me is when I was in the private sector, I was so proud of myself because we were able to achieve, 56, 57, 58% diversity consistently. And here, in the combination that I've laid out for you, we started out with 80% diversity in year 1, 80% diversity in year 2, and it went up to 90% ethnic diversity in year 3, along with 52% language diversity. And this is a population of adults that's average age 29. So we were able to bring in people who wouldn't have considered these careers because we combine all these best practices together in novel ways. All right, so all of these concepts and examples I shared with you are in the book, and the proceeds go to support Futuro Health's nonprofit mission. Also, if you're a big podcaster listener like I am, when I do my walks, there's a free podcast where I interview leaders. I'm hoping to interview your commissioner right here, who are thinking hard about the future of work, the future of learning, and the future of care, who are sharing how they're thinking about the future and how it will shape out. So you can reach me. Hopefully you'll enjoy the podcast as well. So you can listen to that anywhere that you listen to podcasts. So with that, I'm just end with this slide, and I just wanted to express my appreciation. Thank you for joining me in thinking about the future of learning, the future of work, and the future of care.
A lot of good information, both speakers, but this especially relating directly to us. Okay, a little bit of a notice. VR counselors, please make sure that you go to the CRC CEU information desk to obtain credit for the keynote and this super session. It's in the hallway. There's a table out there. Also, regarding parking, parking is $5 today. If you're paying with cash, you'll need to pay at the front desk. Don't just go get your car and then expect there to be somebody there to take the cash. Go to the front desk, pay for the parking. Otherwise, if you're using a credit card, you can go and the exit machine will, when you exit, the machine will accept a credit card. Okay, so now it's my pleasure to introduce our, now this says newest commissioner, but he's been with us for several months now, and I know that he's already visited several board offices and continues or intends to continue to do that. He has also spent time with all the division directors learning our operations. He's gone through legislative hearing for his confirmation and done well there. And he's fully engaged, so really calling him the newest one is more just a time perspective. He already, I believe, is up to speed on the agency, on the system, and will continue to gain that expertise. So with that, let me introduce the Commissioner representing Labor, Alberto Treviño III. Goes by Albert, so Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you, Ed. As you said, I am the newest commissioner, so I'll keep that for a while as long as y'all let me. But hello, everyone. I'm going to be really brief so we can get out of here and join traffic on I-35. For those who don't know me, my name is Alberto Treviño, and I am the Commissioner representing labor. I'm joining my fellow commissioners in thanking you for joining this year's Workforce Forum. Tomorrow will be filled with learning and sharing sessions about growing our employment ecosystem. By engaging our youth, expanding apprenticeships, supporting our child care workers, Texas continues to be in the spotlight and serve as a model for the rest of the nation. During my first year as commissioner, my goal is to sit down with each of the workforce boards so I can get to know you and you can get to know me. I've had an opportunity to meet with some of the boards already, and I look forward to visiting the rest in the coming months. So with that, have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
All right, nice and brief. So now they've asked me to consume the rest of the time that we were gonna be here. No, not really. Okay. I think that may be the most popular commissioner now. Commissioner Demerson may have taken it away from you just because of time. You're what you used to say, you know, your grandmother told you to, anyway, keep it short. All right, so thank you all for being here today. I want to remind everybody that the sessions start at 8:30 tomorrow. Our agendas, you should have a copy of the agenda somewhere. We've got a lot of relevant topics. I'm going to try to make it back out tomorrow with the session going on. I'm going to try to make it back out tomorrow as well, because there is a lot of really exciting things that were going on. The one thing I want to make sure, and I'm not going to take very much time at all, seriously, the one thing I want to make sure all of you understand is when we talk about innovating, we talk about collaborating, we talk about making changes, we talk about excelling in what we do, each of you does that already, but you do it subconsciously. It's just part of what you do and how you do it. So a lot of what this conference is intended to be is to bring that to the forefront and make it more of a conscious decision. If you think about both of our speakers, a lot of them had to do with making things conscious decisions, not just sort of going through the motions. And you don't. If you're here, it's because, as the chairman said, you've shown up. And most of the credit goes to the individuals that show up, not just in person, but virtually as well. The world is changing, and we're changing with it. So with that, we are the workforce system of Texas, and together we work to do all of the things that we need to accomplish, and that's what makes the state the success that it is. So have a good evening. Enjoy the traffic on Interstate 35 going north or south. You can try to avoid it some other way, but it's not going to help. And we'll see you all tomorrow at 8:30. Thank you very much.